Youth on the go. Whoa. Let's start the show. Whoa. Let's go, let's go, let's go. I will learn new things. I will be creative. Grab your gears, let's gather around. An adventure is always waiting. The storytelling news for us, and we always know what's happening. We act, we play, we dance, we sing from 9 to 10 on Saturday morning. Youth on the go. Whoa. Let's start the show. Oh. Youth on the go. Whoa. Let's start the show. Whoa. Let's go, let's go, let's go.
Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. Good morning, good morning, good morning to all of our radio listeners, our viewers via Vaughn Radio's Facebook page and YouTube channel. And welcome to another edition of Youth on the Go here on Vaughn Radio. I am Zahnela Claxton from the Department of Education, and we're here with you on Saturdays to share information, updates, opportunities, anything that we can to help our students, to help our young people. And this Saturday is no different. We have a very special show ahead for all of you. In fact, we have a guest this morning. I'm going to allow her to introduce herself and tell us a bit about why she's here.
Hi, good day. Pleasant good day to everyone. My name is Janicia Pemberton. I am a dietetic intern with the University of the West Indies, and I have a Bachelor's of Science in Human Nutrition and Dietetics, currently pursuing a diploma in institutional and community dietetics. And today we will be discussing nutritious meals for the adolescent.
All right, so dietetics.
Dietetics.
See, I'm getting it mixed up. Dietetics. Now, dietetics might be a new word for our listeners, our viewers via Facebook. Can you tell us what exactly does that mean before we even get into the crux of the matter?
So it's basically the study and science behind food, the nutrients, how food would interact with your health. And yeah, so the profession is basically, as the dietitians, they are clinically applying the science behind foods in order to treat conditions, as well as reach out to the community in order to improve their knowledge on, healthy eating.
So the work of persons like you and your other colleagues who are in the field would help also with the fight against non-communicable diseases as well, because you're thinking about the science behind it. And most persons don't think of food and food prep and nutrition as a science. And so I'm happy that you're here, and I'm hoping that our students listening also are aware that they can have a new career path, something else that they can further pursue. All right, so before we get into so you're talking about nutrition for adolescents today. So we know we have our students at home, and our high schoolers especially. This is a time when our high school students kind of lounge around. They go to bed at 3 in the morning. They wake up at 2 in the afternoon, and they just kind of lounge all day. And when they get up, they eat burgers, they eat
anything like a sausage, Vienna sausage.
Oh yes, and macaroni. Not just all the children. Oh yes, noodles. That's like on the top of the list for our children, because one, it's easy for them to prepare for themselves, and two, apparently they think it tastes really good. I do not agree. I don't think that those things are delicious and tasty. I think that we have so many vegetables and fruits out there, so much that we have locally, but we have to understand. So we're going to start off with them. Parents, listen up. We'll discuss as we go along, so that if there's any information there that you can apply to ensure that your children can go back to school, because food affects mental health, affects the ability to learn, affects so many things. And so we can't stop and go all crazy this summer and then expect our children to be ready for September, which is right around the corner. So I'll allow you to go into sharing with us, and then we'll discuss as we go along.
Okay, so As I said, today's topic would be on the nutritious meals for the adolescent. So as an adolescent, you're currently at an age where your body is experiencing a change into an adult. Your brain is developing, your bones and muscles are growing, you're experiencing hormonal changes, your appetite may increase or decrease, and with rapid growth and development, your body will need the right amount of energy and nutrients in order to support those changes. So research has shown that adolescents, they are not eating the right amount of carbohydrates, proteins and fats because they have been eating an excessive amount of sugar, salt and fat. So what is the problem? So there's an imbalance of nutrients due to the lack of nutritious meals, which results in an unhealthy population eventually in the long run. So this session will focus on the role of nutrition, essential nutrients that are needed for growth and development, eating behaviors, consequences of unhealthy eating habits, and recommendations that you could follow when you're planning your meals. So the role of nutrition. Nutrition is a study of how your body is affected by the foods that you eat and the essential nutrients that are needed for survival and for you to remain healthy. Your body tissues need substances that are in the food that you eat in order to create energy that it needs. Nutrition focuses on the important role of foods and how they may cause diseases, why we choose the foods that we do, and the overall goal is to balance the nutrients so that you can remain healthy. Essential nutrients. So the foods that you eat, of course, they contain nutrients. These nutrients provide you with energy and helps your body to function. Essential nutrients are found only in the foods that you eat. Without them, your body will not be able to function efficiently. The essential nutrients include the carbohydrates, proteins, fats, vitamins, minerals, water, and fiber. Carbohydrates. So carbohydrates are needed for energy. They are found in all plant foods like vegetables, fruits, whole grains, and beans. They contain plenty of vitamins, minerals, and fiber. So there are two types of carbohydrates. You have the complex carbs and the simple carbs. Complex carbs, they have more fiber in them, and it means that it would take longer for your body to break them down. So as the body is breaking them down, the sugars would be released very slowly into the blood. So they are healthier for this reason because it wouldn't spike your glucose levels like a simple carb would. So simple carbs, on the other hand, they are digested very quickly. These are processed foods that have been broken down and processed. So they are digested very quickly, and so the glucose would be released very quickly in the blood. They have little nutrients and fiber. You also have sugar sweetened beverages. They also contain a lot of sugar and little to no nutrients. It is important to drink options like low fat milk or water with each meal. Limit those fruit juices and sodas and energy drinks. Okay. Protein. So protein is needed for your body tissues in order for them to grow and develop. They are found in foods like animals such as fish, chicken, milk, and eggs. They are also found in nuts, legumes like the lentils, the kidney beans, and the chickpeas. You want to avoid meats such as the sausages, the hot dogs, the deli meats like the ham, the bacon, the salami, as they are very high in trans fats and saturated fats. You want to focus on lean meat options like the skinless chicken breast, fish, as well as the meat substitutes like the legumes and beans. fats. So they are needed for energy as well. There are healthy fats and unhealthy fats. So unhealthy fats would include fats like monounsaturated fats or polyunsaturated fats. So that is like your olive oils, your peanut oils, your pumpkin seeds, your soybean oil, and the walnuts. They contain omega-3 and they are very beneficial for your heart and lowering cholesterol. So unhealthy fats include your saturated fats and your trans fats. So those are extremely hard for the body to break down. And so when you eat too much of them, it can cause a buildup of plaque in your arteries. Okay,
and then that could lead to heart disease,
that could lead to stroke. That could lead.
Would these things? And I know that the adolescents listening are probably wondering, can this even affect me? The saturated fats. Am I too young? I'll be fine. Yeah. That's for old people. Yeah. What are your thoughts on the
over the long run, and as time goes on, it will eventually. That's what happens, and that's why generally you find older persons older persons having cardiovascular disease or atherosclerosis or stroke, but it develops from when you're young. So yes.
So what you do now, children, students, listeners, parents, what you do now, what your children do now affects them over time. Yes. And of course they might not see it now, yes, but in another 10, 15 years, yes, it might start manifesting.
Yes. And it also includes foods like hydrogenated butter, fried foods, your French fries, your fried chicken, the macaroni, the garlic breads, pastries, salty potato chips, and the salty crackers, as well as the cakes and the ice cream bars.
But Ms. Pemberton, you've now cancelled out everything that our teenagers could possibly eat. I mean, fries and fried chicken, that's, you know, macaroni, we talked about the noodles, they live off of those things. So we definitely would have to pay closer attention
to what we eat. Yes. Also, you want to focus on the unsaturated healthy fats and limit your consumption of those saturated and trans fats. Okay. When it comes to minerals are important as well, such as calcium, which is needed for bone growth and development, iron in order to carry oxygen around the body, as well as potassium, which is important for your fluid balance and a healthy blood pressure, as well as zinc, which is important for immunity, for healing damaged tissues and growth. You also have vitamins such as folate, that's important for growth, development of your bones and muscles. Vitamin E, it is an antioxidant. So what antioxidants do, they basically prevent your tissues from being damaged. Also, vitamin D is important for strong bones as well as immune system and metabolism. So now we're going to get into what influences the type of foods that we eat. Okay, so as adolescents, you may experience irregular eating habits that may affect your health. Eating disorders include binge eating, skipping of meals, dieting, and excessive snacking. So at this age, teens usually skip meals, specifically breakfast. Yes, and skipping meals makes it harder for you to concentrate even, and studies have shown that it would increase your BMI. Because you're having the tendency of skipping the meals, so you would tend to grab a quick snack. You would tend to grab something ultra processed to replace the meal.
Most times, like a piece of chocolate or sugary, something high in sugar is what you take because you get so hungry in the interim that you kind of snack on something. And usually, the salty food doesn't help with the craving or the hunger. So the sugary foods and the sugary drinks are what we tend to yes. And so we would tend to grab those types of foods. Also, you may often eat food away from home, like the fast foods or the convenience food, maybe the food from the local restaurants as well. And you can find that these foods in the fast food restaurants, the stores, also from vending machines in some areas, and the local stores surrounding your schools. So they're usually these types of stores
they're usually surrounding the schools, and they're easily accessible to children, and convenient food is also more affordable. So we would tend to, gravitate towards those types of foods. But those foods contain little to no nutrients, added sugars, fats, as well as sodium. So some of your eating behaviors may be influenced by a variety of things, such as social media or peer pressure, peer influence. Your friends can influence what you eat based on, let's say, the places that you tend to eat at. So for example, when it comes to your social setting, a group of friends may tend to buy food from a fast food restaurant or a convenience store. So whereas you might have had the opportunity to bring a healthier food option from home, you may tend to go to the convenience store with your friends. They may also influence, if you drink alcohol, and smoke. Families may also positively or negatively influence the things that you eat based on their eating practices. Maybe they may tend to eat food at a local restaurant, or they may bring home something like a barbecue chicken or pizza. Okay, so there are also things that may prevent you from accessing foods. This is known as food insecurity. So many different things could affect food insecurity, the wages of the parents, etc. Okay, so it is based on your social groups, your family, and your accessibility to food. So it's important to promote the positive behaviors that are modeled at home, sometimes at school, and within the community. So consequences. What are the consequences of unhealthy eating? So you may get a number of disadvantages, such as cavities. So that could result from the excessive sugary intake of food. The bacteria in your mouth would feed on something known as fermentable carbohydrates. Those are foods that tend to cause decay in the mouth. So it's usually carbohydrates, and eventually plaque would build up, and if you don't do anything to dislodge that the food, you would increase your risk for having cavities, as well as obesity. When you consume too many calories, sugars, and fats, your body begins to store the excess as fat, and this causes you to become overweight. This could result to obesity and increase your risk for cardiovascular disease like the stroke, hypertension, as well as heart failure. There is also anorexia. So the eating disorders such as anorexia and bulimia may result to extreme weight loss, causing you to become malnourished and underweight. So that may lead to cardiovascular diseases as well, and digestive issues. Type 2 diabetes. You also put yourself at risk for type 2 diabetes, and that may occur because you eat too much sugar over a long period of time, causing your body to become insensitive to insulin. And insulin is responsible for lowering your blood sugar, and when your body becomes insensitive to it, you develop type 2 diabetes. It makes you feel thirsty, tired, or you may even urinate a lot. Okay, and your cuts may even take longer to heal, so you could look for those signs in order to determine, is there something wrong? Should I, go and get a checkup?
And so you've spoken to the bulimia,
yes,
the anorexia, and of course the type 2 diabetes.
Yes.
These can affect adolescents now. So while we talked about the heart disease and the plaque buildup leading, over time, these are things that happen to adolescents now. So it's not something that is, pie in the sky or in the future.
Yeah.
It is something that can happen now.
Yeah.
And so if our students are experiencing, and they might not even know, when you think of anorexia and bulimia, they may not even know what to look for and that kind of thing. So what should we say to students or parents who are on the call in terms of what's should they be looking for,
Yes.
and what should be the red flags as it relates to those potential risk disorders?
Yeah, so you can look for extreme weight loss or wasting. So you may see their collarbones may be sunken in, their temples may be sunken in, their cheekbones may be sunken in. You can also look for their eating habits. Do they tend to avoid eating food, a lot of food? Also, these things are affected. Mainly it's like the mental health. So you can also, if you realize, okay, my child has been acting different, even just in acting different, and then you notice that they're not eating as much as they used to, so that is a sign. Also with anorexia, there's something called amenorrhea. So that has to do with the menstrual cycle and anemia. So typically persons who have anorexia, they tend to have amenorrhea as well. So this is when they have the iron in their blood, their body is very low. So it kind of tips off the menstrual cycle. So they tend not to have the menstrual cycle as often as they should. Okay?
So parents should look for that as well, as well as students.
Yes.
And you spoke to it having connections to mental health.
Yes.
So what advice, if they're noticing any of these symptoms, what advice would you give to parents, especially who may be listening?
The advice in terms of
what should they do?
Accessing mental health, like therapy, or in terms of the the nutrition part of it.
Well,
so
I guess a bit of both, because I think it's a combination.
Yeah, it's a combination. So if you do realize that, and this is why it's good to seek the advice of a dietitian, because we are able to then track the weight of the child, also provide some sort of therapy in terms of nutrition, and in doing so we could then, and as you say, it's something that is linked with mental health. So also there would be recommendations. It's teamwork basically. So you're working with your doctors, you're working with your dietitian, as well as your therapist, your psychologist as well, to help alleviate some of the symptoms and aid with recovery. Okay. So what are the recommended tips when it comes to creating a healthy meal? So these are the things that you could consider whenever you're planning your meals or preparing your meals. So there's something known as the multi-mix principle. So the multi-mix principle is a combination of foods, and it is recommended to ensure that you have adequate nutrition or balanced nutrition. So there are 3 types of mixes. You have the double mix or 2 mix. So what it does, it comprises of a cereal such as rice, maybe cornmeal, and a legume. So legumes having protein as well. So the legume is that protein source. So you have the cereal, which is rice and maybe stew lentils. You could also use the cereal and food from animal instead of the legumes, or you could use provision such as, let's say, sweet potato and the food from animals, or incorporate that with the legume as well. So an example of this is our staple dish, the cornmeal and fish. So that's a well balanced meal.
Oh really?
Yes, that's a well balanced
because some persons have questioned, how balanced our meals are, especially as Caribbean people.
Yes.
We know we tend to go heavy on starch. I never realized that.
Cornmeal and fish.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And you also have the 3 mix or the triple mix, and that incorporates the cereal such as the rice, the legume, and with this one you can add vegetable. If you don't want to use the vegetable, the legume, you can use the food from animal, or the provision with the food from animal and the vegetable. So an example of that would be stew bean or stew lentils, callaloo, and chicken breast, or let's say fish. So that's 3 different meals: your vegetable, food from animal, as well as your legumes. There's also the quadruple mix. This one contains the cereal, the legume, the vegetable, and the food from animal. Or instead of the cereal, which is the rice, you could use a provision, maybe yam, maybe sweet potato, green banana, whatever it is. So an example of the dish would be like your boiled yam, stewed lentils, steamed vegetables, and a baked chicken. Okay?
Okay. So basically, especially as Caribbean people, I know I heard you talk about the triple mix and all those and all those, but I think we like lots of food on our plate.
On our plate.
We like to see a lot of food. So
Yes.
basically, we need to make sure that if we're going with the quadruple mix, that we're looking at ensuring that we don't have too much of the cereal or too much of, so balancing it out.
Yes, balancing it out. And that's where the My Plate principle or the My Plate guide comes in handy. So what the My Plate guide is, it shows you how to divide your plate so that you have a well balanced meal. So the recommendation would be to divide your plate in half of your plate would be your green leafy vegetables, and a quarter of your plate would be the staples or the grains, so that's your rice or your starchy food. And then you have the other quarter being the food from animals. Maybe you want to swap that out with beans or tofu, but you have the option of choosing your protein source. And typically in the Caribbean, we tend to have the majority of our plate being starchy foods. So it might be the majority being rice. It may be it may be rice with a salad, a potato salad, and then we have the majority being chicken, and we only have a small little serving of vegetable, but it should be the larger serving being the vegetables. Yes, and the quarter should be the protein and the starchy foods or the grains.
All right. So I know that we've shared a lot of information, and you know, in education, you always want to give students a mental break to regroup, to come back. So we're going to take a very short break, and when we come back, we'll pick up from where we left off to help our children while they are planning during the summer to know how they should eat well.
When VON vibrates, the whole Caribbean must shake.
860 AM. The Powerhouse.
It's time, come on, rise and shine. You know, I know, we're gonna have a great time. And now we're past it quickly, you don't wanna miss it. So turn up the radio, it's youth on the go. Youth on the go. Whoa, let's start the show. Oh, youth on the go. Let's go. I will learn new things. I will be creative. Grab your gears, let's gather around. An adventure is always waiting. The storytelling news for us, and we always know what's happening. We act, we play, we dance, we sing from 9 to 10 on Saturday morning. Youth on the go. Whoa, let's start the show. Oh, youth on the go.
Let's go. Good morning to all of our radio listeners, our viewers via Vaughan Radio's Facebook page and YouTube channel, and welcome to another edition of Youth on the Go here on Vaughan Radio. I am Zahnela Claxton from the Department of Education, and with us today we have Miss Janicia Pemberton. And Miss Janicia Pemberton is an intern with the University of West Indies, and I don't want to trip up the area, so I'm going to let her remind us when she starts speaking again. But today we have been talking about adolescents and meal prep for adolescents, and just some of the considerations when it comes to nutrition for our teenagers, for our young people who are within that adolescent range. And it has been very enlightening, I think.
Yes.
And we've learned, once again, I can't reiterate enough, that we cannot leave our children to just eat ramen and Vienna sausage, or ramen and hot dog sausage, which is the staple meal for the summer. But we have to make sure for their growth and development that they have a more balanced meal. So we were talking about the different approaches, and I'm going to turn back over to Miss Pemberton.
Okay. So once again, I am a dietetic intern with the University of the West Indies, and I'm currently pursuing a diploma in institutional and community dietetics. Okay, so as we're moving on, when it comes to the serving size or portioning your meals, another method that you could use is known as the portion size guide. So it's a handy mealtime portion size guide to assist you with planning the correct portion size to ensure you're having a balanced diet. So it basically depends on your hand gestures in order to, whenever you're preparing meals, that you could focus on. So whenever you're choosing foods from such as staples, your legumes and fruits, you want to choose as much as you could fit in your fist. Whenever you're choosing vegetables, as much as you could hold in both hands. When you have food from animals, you want it to be palm size, so it would be the size of here.
But no, listen, that means we're doing this thing wrong, because my chicken leg takes up half of the plate. There's no way the salad, for any adolescent on the call, there's no way that the salad is going to be 2 pounds full. No. So we are doing this entire thing wrong.
Yes.
We're in trouble, people. We heard about a lot of the conditions that she said, I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, so legumes, 1 pound, okay.
Yes.
Vegetables, 2.
Yes.
So I was expecting to hear protein, 3. But it went down. It said palm.
Yes, the size of your palm.
So really and truly, we're eating too much, as they would say locally. Too much relish.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
And for the fats or your fats and oils, it should be the amount of your thumb. So as much as this.
With half of your thumb?
Yes.
But you know how much butter people put in their
exactly.
food? The palm full?
Exactly.
Oh my goodness.
We don't necessarily need all that oil and butter to prepare foods, and sometimes you don't need oil. You could use steaming or another method when it comes to preparing your food.
And I think that if we use steaming, we will have to use maybe some local seasoning too, because sometimes they worry about the taste. The butter brings a nice
flavor.
But they say the better it tastes, the worse it is for you, probably. So
you could use different things to add the flavor. So it's not just you're eliminating the butter and you're eliminating the salt. You could use different things such as herbs, your spices, and so forth in order to add flavor to your meals.
I think I need to go through this again because I'm trying to understand. So you're telling me that you need a handful of legumes.
The handful of legumes or your fruits.
Yes,
a handful.
Then you need
two handfuls of vegetables. So remember, with your plate, half of your plate is supposed to be the vegetables. So that's the idea. This is another method to incorporate.
And for children, it's easy for them to use this as a visual.
Yeah.
And then you're telling me a palm-sized protein.
Yes.
Half with your thumb for the oils and fats.
Yes.
Boy, we have to go restart our entire lives have now come to nothing. And we need food lives.
It's not something that you have to do, like you change everything all at once. You slowly change and you slowly introduce, so whereas you used to take maybe a whole chicken leg, maybe try this time, let's remove the skin and have maybe a drumstick or, it depends. So slowly make the changes. You don't have to do everything all at once because it wouldn't be maintainable, it would be manageable. Okay. So there's also another practice. You could get into the habit of reading nutrition labels, so in order to make healthy choices. So what we would recommend is look at the percent daily value. So at the back of the packaging you would see percent DV, and you want to focus on that. Make sure that the saturated fats, your sodium and salt is below 5%, and when it comes to the fiber, make sure that it is above 20%. Okay. And there's also different eating patterns that we could put into place. There's something known as the Mediterranean diet. So what the Mediterranean diet is, it is a cardioprotective diet, or in other words, it helps to protect your heart. It's an eating pattern that provides whole or minimally processed foods. It lowers the risk of cardiovascular disease, and the recommended, it is very high in monounsaturated fats like the olive oils and other healthier fat choices. It is rich in fruits and vegetables and provides a high amount of fiber, phytochemicals, vitamins and minerals. It avoids the excessive use of sugar. It is low in the consumption of processed foods or salty foods and those sweet snacks, and it provides lean meat recommendations such as your white or oily fish, or even vegetarian sources such as the legumes and beans and so forth. It also guides you in how you should prepare these meals. So when it comes to preparing your food, they would recommend that you grill, you bake, you roast, or even steam your food. Okay. There's also the DASH diet, and this one is geared towards lowering sodium, and it's called the Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension, and it aids in lowering high blood pressure, your risk for diabetes, stroke, as well as heart disease and cancer. So it is very high in fruits and vegetables, minerals such as magnesium, calcium, and it recommends lean meat, low fat dairy products, and it is low in sodium. So we generally consume about two times more the amount of salt that we should. So this is the diet for the Western world. So we generally consume a lot of salt, but the recommended intake would be about 2,300 to 2,400 milligrams. So that is about 1 teaspoon of salt daily, and that's the amount of salt.
Put 5 teaspoons in one meal. I mean, by the time you look at the different.
Yeah.
How much is that daily?
1 teaspoon. And
is like me over here. We're like, okay, our lives have totally been transformed because everything that in our lives probably has been a lie. What we were doing isn't healthy.
Yeah, and the thing is that the food that we eat, they found sodium is naturally in foods. So your food in general provides you with the recommended intake
without putting anything.
But that's why the recommendation would be 1 teaspoon, because you could generally get that from the foods that you're eating. Yes.
Without adding any.
Yes. And there are strategies that you could use as well in order to help to get that flavor to remain. So what you could do is, for example, we tend to cook food. Let's say we season our chicken beforehand. So you know that the seasoning and the sodium is going to soak into that chicken. So imagine we're seasoning our meats, and then while we're cooking, we're still adding salt to it. So what you can do, the recommendation would be for you to cook the food. So cook the food with, or even if you're giving it a marinade, what you could do is season it with your local green seasonings, your herbs, your garlic, whatever it is, or your dry herbs and spices, and then you cook that. And at the table, you can then add salt to your meal. So then you could sprinkle on a pinch of salt on your meat, and you would be able to taste the salt because you're adding it right there. So instead of seasoning beforehand,
and then during and then after,
yes, you can then.
But you know, I've seen videos and meal prep. You know, lots of food channel type stuff.
Yes.
And they most times they don't add salt to
the meat.
And you know what our Caribbean, West Indian, local people said? They can't
They can't cook.
They can't cook. They haven't added any seasoning. They haven't added any salt. They haven't added anything, and so they can't cook.
Yeah, and the thing is that we have to begin. It's a lifestyle change, and we have to begin to, introduce these habits so that we are used to certain flavors. So our palates are so accustomed to the sweet foods, we're so accustomed to the salty foods. So when you do get foods that were prepared like that, you will say
it's bland.
It's bland, but it's something that your palate has to get used to. And when you tend to cut out sweets and salt, your palate becomes accustomed to, you begin to taste the sugars and the salt in foods that you wouldn't have been able to taste. Okay,
so how long do you think, and of course I don't know that you have the answer, but I'm here wondering, to do this detox process? Because if all my life I've been seasoning, I mean, you cannot cook meat without seasoning it. And then you make sure some people, you put in chicken cubes, you still putting a little of the seasonal, you still putting a little of the salt. By the time you're finished, it tastes good. So how long does a detox process probably take? Will it take about a year for your palate to say, okay, this is, or, I mean, I know you might not have the answer,
I think it's something that it's a case by case basis, okay, and it's just a case by case basis.
You think people will go through withdrawal? I'm just wondering.
Yes, I do, because remember, sugar is something that studies have shown that it's very addictive, and it's like dopamine to your brain. So the longer you consume it for, the more addicted you become. So of course you get withdrawal, but you have to try and incorporate different strategies in order to go around that. So they would typically recommend that you could make healthy snacks, even like a granola. Make something healthy at home, eat fruits or whatever the case may be. You also have healthier snacks as well, so you could always turn to that instead of going to something that is highly sweet. You could make your own chips at home, make your own potato chips, maybe make your own, use breadfruit instead. You could use yam, you could use sweet potatoes as well. Make your own chips, make your own fries instead of buying them. If you're preparing them, you could air fry them perhaps, or bake them instead of deep frying. So you could just try different things in order to kind of deter the addiction or the
But I think that the adolescents listening are thinking, oh my goodness, they're trying to kill us. But understand that everything we're talking about, listeners, should help us to live healthier, to live longer, and of course better lives. And
what they could also consider too is children eat what we give them. Their eating patterns are based on what we give them. So since they were born, some persons, they start drinking sugary sweetened beverages when they're very young, salty snacks when they're young, so their palates have become accustomed to it. So what we could begin to do is try to give our children healthier foods, vegetables, a lot of fruits instead, and let them get accustomed to the eating patterns instead of waiting until they're teenagers, which the eating habits would typically progress and stick with them into adulthood.
One of the challenges we faced even in the school meals program, and I know you had an opportunity to visit some of the schools and see what's happening there, but one of the challenges that we've had with the school meals program is that the battle between us and the parents in terms of nutrition, and the children, when they say I don't like this, instead of allowing their palates to get used to it, we get the pushback, and the parents pull them off the school meals program. You give them mashed green banana and the protein and stuff and vegetables, and my children don't want mashed bananas, they don't want cornmeal, they don't want this, they don't want that, and it's a pushback. But what they want is what they're getting at home, the noodles and the sausage. That's what most children eat at home. And so even as young as the preschoolers, there's some of them who come and they will not eat. You cannot get them to eat the soup, you can't get them to eat, you just can't get them to eat, and the parents are telling you, well, my child can't stop, I have to, and so and we don't want the children to starve, of course, but at the same time, if at 3 years old we can't even get you to eat some local provision and some, then how are we going to really see sustainability and food security in the future? Because who's going to buy these dashin and yam? Who's going to buy the green bananas? We will have them here to export. Because the children will not have a palate for it. While we grew up eating it, they have no sense of it, and when we try to incorporate it into the meal, they're not eating it. It ends up in the, having to be disposed of, and then the parents are pushing back and saying they're taking our children off the school meals because you're not feeding them what they want. And I don't think it is our duty to feed them what they want. I think it's our duty to feed them
the nutritious meals.
What is best for them.
And the thing is, another thing is that, as I said before, their habits are influenced by their parents as well. So even if they realize, okay, my child doesn't want, they call me, they don't want the vegetables, they have to continue to encourage them to eat the food. Try incorporate it. Don't just whenever let's say they're making a dish, just completely exclude vegetables simply because they don't like it. They have to encourage the children, even try and eat in front of them. Allow them to prepare the meals and so forth in order for them to get accustomed and used to the food, and start young so their palates could be accustomed to those types of foods as well. Okay, and also what we need to consider is physical activity. So we need to be more physically active. You could incorporate age appropriate physical activity. So you can run, you can swim, any amount of physical activity, any amount that is more than what they're used to is beneficial. So it is recommended that you have at least 30 minutes of moderate intensity physical activity. So that's like you're swimming, you're running, you're walking. Even if they could garden, if you garden or farm, allow them to garden.
I want
along with you. Even in terms of television, don't let them become accustomed to just sitting at the television and computer for a prolonged period of time. Let them go out, let them run, let them interact with the environment outside. And there's also a recommendation of about 20 minutes of the high intensity physical activity. So that's like your weightlifting and so forth. So even just letting them gardening, you're picking up a lot of heavy equipment, so that's something that is good as well. So yes, that would be a recommendation in order to help create that balanced, nutritious meal and healthy living. Okay, so that brings us to the end of that session. So remember to consider balancing your diet. Limit the highly processed foods. They contain a lot of sugars, fats, and salts. And consider the food groups such as the multi-mix principle, the serving sizes, the My Plate guide, the portion guide, as well as practice reading your nutrition labels. Okay.
Well, Miss Pemberton, today has been a day of revelation. And we've been exposed to many things through biology, and over time you've heard different presentations. I am still stuck on, and Melissa's over there stuck too. We're stuck on this, especially the thumb, the half thumb of I'm trying. I'm like, this is like a little teeny,
that's a
teeny bit, you know, and for the whole meal. So you're thinking, if you put that in, let's say you put some of that in your rice, you can't put it on the vegetables, you can't put it anywhere else. It's done. You're done. So you have to decide which one of these things do I need my thumb portion. But I think the information is very useful. I hope that our listeners, especially our parents, because parents guide what's happening even with our adolescents, and they set standards, and so especially our parents, but our teenagers listening as well. I know that when you're a teenager, you think that you're untouchable, you're immortal in your mind, right? And so none of this might apply to you.
And even now is when they should make the changes, instead of waiting until maybe you develop type 2 diabetes or something. Make the change now to avoid or prevent developing those non-communicable diseases.
Yes. And so time is now. Melissa, we've been at it for a long time. We have a lot of detoxing to do. Oh my goodness. But I think that, as I said, the information is timely. And I hope that, especially, you know what's going to happen. No, today's food fair. Well, I guess it's splurge today, but I know the amount of butter out there and oils out there, and the fried chicken. The staple for culture is the Sunday fried chicken, and everybody's eating that every day. And but it's a short period of time, so I'm saying detox. And really take a close look at what we're eating. I think that is the message, and it's a message that has to start from a very early age.
Very young
I'm
age.
stuck on the palate. I remember our former school meals coordinator, Mrs. Daniel, she would always say, if we stick to it, the children will develop a palate for it.
Exactly.
And, it was hard for everybody to embrace that if you because change causes and creates discomfort.
Yes.
And it's not going to be a prolonged discomfort. It's going to be a temporary discomfort. Change in everything, whether it be food or any other change. But we don't do well when we go through that period of discomfort. As soon as it feels a little bit uncomfortable, we revert and we go right back to what obtained before, because it's comfortable. And we have to look at what is best for us, and not just, as I said, in nutrition, but in everything. In order for us to improve, there is often, more times than not, that period of discomfort. And that's why I asked you about the withdrawal symptoms, because I could imagine, especially the salt and the sugar, what that would be like for persons. And I think that's why you see when persons develop diabetes, you realize they lose a lot of weight one time. But I know that they go through some serious withdrawals as well, and it's difficult. But if you can do it when you're diagnosed with diabetes, why can't you do it before to prevent it? And so that's something that we have to challenge ourselves with. Listeners, children, we're not too young. The time is now, and you're home. The best time to go through the withdrawal is during the summer, so that you don't have to see the symptoms during the school time. And when you go back to school, you can look at taking your fruits for your morning snack instead of the chocolate. We really love those sugary snacks. But the fruits are really good, as you said, a little granola mix. We get into the habit of making it in a little bowl, and we take it to school. We make
yogurt.
It ourselves.
You could mix it with their yogurt. I have low-fat options, even if you are eating the ice cream. If you are eating, you're eating the yogurt, try a low-fat version.
And let me put on there that the iQueen's ice cream has a no dairy, low sugar, Nevis made ice cream. That's the one I have. So I pride myself in a little, not too much excessive, a little spoonful here and there, and making sure that at least you keep that control. So in case you're thinking about how can I get some low-fat ice cream, I'm putting in a plug for the iQueen's team, young entrepreneurs, and they've developed that market. They've tapped into that market, and I think that is something that we can pursue. So, listeners, children, everyone out there, we have to pay close attention to our meals. Miss Pemberton, you have to come back, because Melissa and I have to get some time to regroup, to think about this handful and two handful and palmful and thumb half thumb thing. So we have to regroup and really get our lives together on that one. But we have to come up, because we have different target groups that we can speak to, and I think it will be a good period of sharing for parents and students. And so we hope to see you back soon, and to continue with those presentations.
Yes, and thank you for having me, and I look forward to coming back as well.
All right, and before I go, I have to do something very important, because tomorrow is a big day. Tomorrow is a very big day. Auntie Vanny is celebrating her birthday, and I could not end today without saying happy birthday, Auntie Vanny, from us here on Youth on the Go. And we wish you continued blessings. We pray for your strength, and of course your wonderful personality that lights up the whole of Nevis, that you will continue to do so. And we wish that you get showered with all of the blessings tomorrow and always. So happy birthday, Auntie Vanny. And of course, listeners, we know that it's a long weekend. We pray that you all remain safe, and that you are able to do well and get some rest in and some family time in. Young persons, make sure that you are keeping yourself safe during this period. Wish you a happy week, a wonderful week, and we'll see you next time.
It's time, come on, rise and shine. You know, I know we're gonna have a great message quickly. You don't wanna miss it. So turn up the radio. It's youth on the go. Youth on the go. Oh, let's start the show. Oh, youth on the go. Oh, let's start the show. Oh, let's go, let's go, let's go. I will learn new things. I will be creative. Grab your gears, let's gather round. An adventure is always waiting. With storytelling news for us, and we always know what's happening. We act, we play, we dance, we sing from 9 to 10 on Saturday morning. Youth on the go. Oh, let's start the show. Oh, youth on the go. Oh, let's start the show. Let's go, let's go, let's go.
With all the power